Welcome to DownNotableContent. We are Alex.
And SJ Herschel. Today we're going to talk about the Nintendo Direct.
We got a lot, so let's get right into it.
All right. Oh, Alex, we don't really have an update because we just recorded, so should we just dive right in?
Yeah, there's literally nothing new, so...
All right. So, we're going to talk about a few different things. First off, we're going to cover the actual Direct. I took some notes of things that were notable to me. And then we'll talk about it. Just our initial reaction. And then we're going to go have a little in-depth discussion afterward.
Now, before we go over specifics, if you were to give this Direct a out of 10 rating, what are you giving it?
I would say 9.
I would agree.
Yeah. Dang. Wow.
Yeah.
What?
I thought it was really, really great. A couple things missing that would have made it a 10, but also understandable. But yeah, that's
I really, there's not a lot more that I could have really asked for, all things considered.
Yeah.
All right. First off, Mario Kart World, not Mario Kart 9.
Mm-hmm.
Understandably, because you can go off track. There's like different modes. You can explore the different tracks with your friends and stuff. Is it a gimmick or are you excited?
So I was wrong about Mario Kart. This is actually a pretty big change. There's a lot of ads to this. I mean, yeah, so let's talk about free roam first, right? Mario Kart often has like some really, really good music.
It does.
And sometimes those tracks don't, like, you're not on the track long enough because the race ends to like really get your fill.
True.
And so if free roam, if you're listening to that music while you're kind of wandering around, like, I got like legitimately excited about the prospect.
Dude.
So, yeah.
Now, would you do this with friends? You don't have the online subscription, right?
No.
I don't think this would be quite enough to get you to do that, would it?
No.
Yeah.
So this would be like Liv and I just driving around together because
Yeah.
Liv loves Mario Kart. So
There you go.
yeah,
It's perfect. I saw the boats.
right.
That
So
was
that's
kind of cool.
That's the next thing, right? Boats, and then instead of gliders, just wings.
They just turn into, you got wings coming out.
So it's Diddy Kong Racing.
That was actually my first thought too.
Like
This is Diddy
dude.
Kong Racing, except for your vehicle just transforms like mid race. The part I wasn't sure about is the boat. Are there like boat exclusive courses, or are they just parts of a course that has water, and then you're boating on top of it? Is that
right? Because I mean, they've got a lot of tracks for Mario Kart 8 where you go underwater, right? And that's where you kind of have all the underwater stuff going on. And so, like, are they not able to repurpose that, or do they have to redesign those sections of those tracks if they want to use them in this game? I don't know. Yeah.
I'm actually really, when it comes to like racing with water involved, I very much prefer racing on the surface because I think like waves, different physics, I just feel like it provides for more of an interesting, variety to racing rather than going underwater and just being in a water environment that's a little floaty.
I agree. Like in Mario Kart 8, the sections that are underwater versus the ones on the ground have a little bit of a difference, but I don't think it is enough of a difference where you really have to like
you don't have to change
anything.
how you race.
Right, like the only thing you change is like your drifts are a little bit slower, or like your turns are a tiny bit slower. Whereas if they go to this boats floating on the water thing, that can change.
It's all bouncy.
Lot,
I mean, I just think of
right?
how the physics were in Diddy Kong Racing,
mhm.
like I wonder if that's how it's going to feel. Does drifting still work on the surface? How does that work? I have no idea. Yeah, very, very exciting.
Oh. And then like the freaking grinding on the rails, on the walls.
Dude,
like
you can do tricks off of walls and stuff.
Yeah.
Like that's really cool. I'm so excited.
When they showcased that, it looked like there was a trail below and a trail above. So like depending on if the upper trail like provides you a benefit, like there's even kind of like a more of a skill reward for taking kind of that riskier approach where you're jumping back and forth, which exists in the current Mario Kart games. But I think this is just this is a new way to do that, and I really like it. And where I felt like Mario Kart 8 was just a refinement of Mario Kart Wii and Mario Kart 7 on the 3DS, like it feels like this really is like there's a lot of new ideas here that they're trying out, which I'm excited for.
It's a huge revamp, and it makes sense that they're able to have so many new features and changes because they've had a lot of time to work on it, because all they've done with Mario Kart 8 is just keep pumping out new courses, right? So they probably had a small team dedicated to that, and then the main team was working on Mario Kart World.
Right. And to be fair, with how many courses they released for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, they basically released another Mario Kart, but
True. Yes.
like as far as
It was a
content
lot.
amount, right? Like
So much
but
content.
anyway. No, so I'm in our last episode I mentioned that Mario Kart alone, like I would be like fairly disappointed as far as like if that was like the main launch title, but no, I'm a lot more optimistic about it now after seeing it a little bit, and I'm excited to see what comes out on the 17th. Is that when the next direct is for
I think it
like
is the 17th.
the Mario
Yeah.
Kart specific one?
Like
So
middle of this month. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, very exciting stuff. Okay, and then I'm just kind of going in order of things that stood out to me from the direct. So it's going to be hardware, software. The C button, it's the game chat button. I think it's cool.
yeah,
You know,
like
I don't have any complaints about it.
no, yeah. I mean, I think as I've been kind of watching the public react to this direct, I think a lot of people seemed bothered that Nintendo was trying to sell this as like a new feature when on other consoles, like voice chat's been there for a while now, and it should just kind of be considered the standard. But like they're doing it, right? So like now you guys don't have, sorry, when I say you guys, I mean everyone in the world. But, like people don't have another reason to complain, oh well, Nintendo doesn't do this or Nintendo doesn't focus on that. Like they're providing something that they didn't before. And yeah, like it serves like a very simple purpose, and I think it's fine.
Yeah, I mean it's not like massive props to Nintendo or anything.
Right.
This has been done for years,
Right.
but they're adding it, so it's only a positive, right? The only thing I wish is that I hope that when you do chat, that you can make your video game full screen.
Right.
And
Instead of
not have
seeing
the little
other feeds
icons
on the
taking up a
bottom.
bunch of
Right.
area space. I'm hoping that that's an option, but yeah.
Yeah, the other thing is that because I don't use online very often, like at all, I don't have an online membership. I don't use online features in games most of the time. Like it's not like the biggest impact to me. Like I don't plan on using this. Like the only thing I can think of is like potentially trying to creep out like one of my friends and just like pop up out of nowhere and be like, "Hey, what you doing?" Like I don't know. So
Yeah.
but you use online features a bit more, so I'm sure that this will
I haven't in a
impact your
while,
experience
but
a
this
bit.
might kind of rejuvenate my online on the Switch a little bit. And then the Switch 2 camera, that's it's interesting. And I actually read on their website later on that that's not, you don't have to use their proprietary camera. You can use any USB camera.
Plugs in.
But I imagine the Switch 2 camera is probably optimized to do what it's meant to do, and it's cool because the Switch is able to recognize based on only one camera view. If you have 4 players, it'll cut out, right, with software, the faces of all 4 players and stuff. That integration looked really cool. I don't know if I'm gonna get the camera or not, but
And sorry, one thing that you brought up, like as you're watching these feeds on the bottom, this is like a very, very small detail, and I think some people were bothered by it, but I actually rather enjoyed it, is that when you were watching someone else play, at least when I was watching the video, like there were frame rate drops, because like, you understand what I'm saying? Like it wasn't like as smooth of a picture if they were just portraying what you were seeing on your own screen, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. It's not
And
gonna be.
like
Yeah.
I kind of actually really appreciated the fact that like, okay, when you're watching someone else, it's not like you're just like able to, like you're there in the room with them, right? There's internet, and so sometimes that gets a little choppy. And I kind of like was just like, at least they're like being transparent that like that might be the experience that you have sometimes.
I didn't think much about that, but now that you mention it, I remember that. And
Like,
that is realistic. I mean, when I'm chatting with friends on Discord and I decide to stream my gameplay, the feed's never perfect.
right.
Sometimes it'll be like, oh, it's kind of choppy. Do you want to reset it? And so, yeah, it's nice that it's not being presented as this perfect,
Seamless, right?
yeah, thing.
Right.
Which is good. Yeah. Um, Game share.
Yeah.
Um, Now this is kind of an overlap with our last episode, right? Actually, no, this is a new feature. I'm thinking about something else. So one person can have a game, and if it has a game share feature, other people without the game can play that game with you with multiple consoles with only one cartridge. The DS was the first console that did this, from my understanding. It used to be called Download Play, and I loved it. You had Download Play on Mario. Whoever was joining in would play as what's his name, Shy Guy. I think it's great. It's great that they're bringing this feature back. I wonder what games are going to support it, but we'll find out.
No, I think, Nintendo's trying to continue the tradition of local multiplayer,
Yes.
right? And
Yes.
on the original Switch, right, it was a little bit harder because everyone had to have their own copy. But here, not having that, it's like, hey, someone buys Mario Kart, you bring it over, like, and that's all you need, right? Like, I think it's actually, I don't think it's getting enough credit for the feature that it is. Like, I think it's actually like a huge thank you to consumers as a way to, facilitate the gaming behavior that Nintendo seems to want to keep going. So
I mean, almost every other video game creator would make it so that every single person has to have a copy. That's kind of the industry standard now. Nintendo's actually taking a step back and being consumer friendly with this move. So it's great, honestly. And by the way, just as a quick note to all of you listeners and watchers, if you are watching the video version, just know that I'm not going to do any heavy editing in this video. It's mostly going to be just the two of us talking. I won't have a lot of visuals. And that's just so that I can edit this and pump this out and
we can
have it out to you guys as soon as possible. So if you want to just put this up on your second monitor or whatever you want to do is totally fine. Okay, so they clarified that it's a 7.9 inch screen, which is larger than the current one. It's 1080p screen, which is great. It is the same thickness as the current Switch. And the screen supports high dynamic range, or HDR, and up to 120 frames per second. I did not see this coming.
it shocked me.
Yeah. Freaking mind-blowing, to be honest. And I don't think they had to. Like, if they had a 60 FPS screen, that I would have been totally happy with that.
Right.
But 120 FPS, hey, we take those. That's better than my Steam Deck, which has 90 frames per second.
Well, and when you think about it, right, if you're playing on a handheld, right, on that smaller screen, because like a lot of people, or I guess not everyone, but some people struggle with when you're playing consoles on TV, right? You have to choose between fidelity mode and performance modes. You have to choose between your graphic enhancements or your frames per second on a 1080 screen. And because it's so small, like you don't even have to make the choice. So like having 120 frames on that, it's gonna look gorgeous anyway.
I think a lot of games will support it.
It's gonna be awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, even just the up. I'll wait. Actually, I think that'll be something that we talk about.
All right. Magnetic Joy-Cons. Very cool. They explained how it works. That it's it makes sense. So they're not just. So there are two main ways of utilizing magnets. One is just straight up magnet to magnet, magnet to metal. There's no electricity happening. They actually make, they're powering these magnets with electricity. So they create a circuit, and that's what makes them so strong. So I don't think these Joy-Cons falling off and stuff like that is going to be an issue at all based on how I understood their explanation.
Yeah. No, I thought the fact that they went in to explain it, I think shows that they knew that people were concerned about it.
Yeah.
Right? And
yeah.
they took the time to explain, we've got you. We're taking care of you. We're going to show you how it all works.
And they explained it
which
in a
is-
simple way that wasn't alienating to like the normies.
Right.
Like,
Like
it
as
makes
someone
sense.
who's not like I like technology, but I'm not like going into specs on a lot of things. Like, no, it was very easily understandable.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like it.
Larger joysticks.
Mhm.
I guess slightly larger. I'd be interested to, because like when you just watch it on a TV screen, you can't quite tell the scale, right? I can't wait to get a hold of one and compare it with my original Joy-Con, see how different they are. Mouse controls, they confirmed it.
Yep.
Very interesting. They've got some games coming out, and another one we'll talk about later that uses that proprietary stuff, right? Even like using both Joy-Cons as mice to control the game and stuff. Yeah, I guess I'm still a little bit surprised that they actually did that, but one, I guess it's good because in my mind, options are good as long as you're not forcing it onto people. Options are good, right? And it's just an option. You still have a joystick, you still have all the traditional controls that you'd want on a game controller, but you now have the option of using it as a mouse. I wonder how many people are actually going to use it for that. What games are going to support it? It'd be great to see FPS games support it. I can't imagine it's going to be really comfortable, if I'm being honest, to hold it sideways. If you're going to game with it in mouse mode, I would definitely recommend getting some kind of third-party grip or something, which I am sure, a lot of companies are already working on that to make it more comfortable. They said that the speakers are better. The microphone, from what they presented, it looks very impressive that it's supposed to recognize background noise, cancel it out, and only recognize human voice input, which that's the kind of technology that's been around for a long time. So I feel pretty good just taking their word for it, but we'll see how it is. 3D audio when you use headphones. Yeah. That's pretty cool. 2 USB ports, and they did clarify that the top one charges as well. So you can charge from the top or bottom, which is actually better than what I was expecting. So it's not, the top one isn't just for peripherals. You can also charge it from the top when you're in tabletop mode or something like that. And I have had a couple of times, like, when I'm on like airplane flights or something and I want to play tabletop so I don't have to hold it, but on a long flight, I can't charge it while I'm in tabletop, so it solves that issue.
Oh, yeah.
And you can now, and it was also necessary if you want to have the camera plugged in while you have it in dock mode as well. 256 gigabytes of storage. That's okay. That's fine. That's the bare minimum, honestly, in this day and age.
Yeah, I think for me, like a base PS5 comes with 1 terabyte. And the PS5 is about 2 switches wide, about 8 switches long, and about 4 switches deep. So fitting 256 into such a smaller package, I can be okay with it. I know for a lot of people that do a lot of digital games, which will be a topic we get into a little bit later as well. 256 could be a concern early on, but I think all things considered, it does make sense currently.
Yeah, it's fine. I'm gonna be buying most of my games on physical, as I've done before, which will contain the game itself, and then the only thing that goes to the internal storage is the update or any DLC. So, and I haven't really had much of an issue on my original Switch, which only has 64 gigs. So yeah.
And an express, a micro SD express that has, you can double your storage on is like an additional $60 or something, as I think what I saw on Amazon recently for it. So like
the non Nintendo one, just a generic
No,
Express.
I think it was a Nintendo one.
Oh, $60 for like 256 gigs.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really expensive. Well, actually, I don't know what's normal for micro SD Express. Yeah, I don't know what's normal pricing, so I'll have to look around. I'm sure you can find other ones that don't have the Nintendo branding on it.
Sure.
Because
Yeah.
when you buy those, you pay an extra premium
Yeah.
for the logo.
For the star, the Mario symbol.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
That you never see because it's
Never,
just
because it's in your system.
But yeah, I like that they specified, hey, this has to be a micro SD Express card, because of all of the new throughput that they're gonna be putting through.
The throughput they're putting through, baby.
Yeah, thank you.
I love
very
that.
very
I love
eloquent,
that.
right? Very very eloquent. We don't do double takes here. We just record and go, 4K support in docked mode. This had me freaking out.
Yeah.
Now, we have to take it with a grain of salt because how that works is it depends on implementation. It depends on how demanding the graphics are. The PlayStation 4 PS4 Pro came out and said it had 4K support, but realistically, you weren't running things above 4K 30. But Nintendo did say up to 4K 60, or you can do 1080p 120. So I'm very excited to see, especially what Nintendo's first party games are able to do in terms of, can you really do 4K 60? If that Mario Kart could do 4K 60, I'd be very impressed because that was a good looking game. But Nintendo's very good at optimizing, so it's possible, but we'll see, man. And the dock has a fan, which makes sense.
Oh, so that's big. Yeah, that's huge.
That's what allows it to do that extra output and work harder, because the more you push through a system, the hotter it gets, and you need a fan to cool it down.
Yep.
It plays compatible Switch games, physical and digital. I like that they clarified digital too. So all of your old library of Switch games, almost all of them, will carry over. I imagine games like what's that one? You had like cardboard boxes and stuff, and Labo and maybe some other very niche things might not work on Switch too. But I wish we kind of had a list of like, hey, here's what you shouldn't expect will work on the Switch too. But I imagine most games will work on the Switch too.
So the digital, the crossover, right? We're saying that digital games are going with it too. I know that is standard, kind of like when for PS4 and PS5, you can play your PS4 digital games on PS5 if you have them. But y'all, in case y'all forgot, I didn't have a PS4, so this is the first time that I have a system that's allowing digital games to cross over, and I have quite a few digital games that I won't shut up about that I'm very excited to revisit under this higher performing system, especially because so much of my love, a good amount of my love for them comes from the art style, and so seeing them on a higher performing system is very, very intriguing, and it's definitely something I'm going to be revisiting.
Yeah,
and I'm very excited.
It'll be cool.
I'm very excited.
It's another consumer friendly move to let us move everything over,
and it is consumer friendly now because they're keeping so much of the same format. I think it does make sense. If they weren't doing it, I think that would be a huge blow. So it is kind of what should be expected.
I agree.
And even with that, they didn't have to. So I prefer the grateful approach, right?
It's good. Yeah. Okay, the Switch 2 Welcome Tour, it's supposed to introduce you to what the Switch 2 does and its functionality and stuff. It's a paid digital game. I was really disappointed that it doesn't just come with a console. Nobody's going to buy this.
No, I won't.
Who cares? Like, why would I buy a tutorial for a game console? I
No,
mean,
that's the thing, right? I mean, and the second they said that it was paid, I knew I wasn't going to get it for one reason and one reason alone. Astrobot's Playroom exists on the PS5, which is the greatest pack-in game ever. So it literally does everything that the Switch 2, or what's it called? Switch Tour? Welcome
Switch
Tour?
to Welcome Tour. Switch
Yeah,
to
no.
Welcome Tour.
So, yeah, no. It's not going to sell. I'm not entirely sure. I want to say that I think they'll kind of backtrack and be like, okay, you know what? We'll make this a free digital add-on. They probably won't, but
there's no.
yeah, I won't pay $10 for it. Like
No.
they didn't do anything to make it like appealing. Like
No,
it's literally like a tech tutorial. It's not like an actual
a fun
game.
It doesn't
Yeah,
look like a fun game.
So,
Honestly, even if it was free, I don't know if I'd touch it. If I'm
that's a
being
fair
honest.
point. That's a fair
So
point.
why would I pay money to spend my time on it?
It's a fair point.
Because that's what I was thinking. That's what I was thinking when I was watching. I was like, okay, this is gonna come free with the console. It's just to show it off. Like, I might check it out, maybe not. Like, I don't know if I want to waste my time on it. And they're like, it'll be a paid digital game. Oh, what? No way, dude. You'd have to pay me to play that. It's like, you want me to learn your console? I'll do it through actual video games, thanks. Okay, we already talked about micro SD express cards. That's what will be required. You can use the system transfer function on the existing Switches to move all of your stuff in your account to the Switch 2, which is fantastic. That should be fairly seamless. There's a new Pro controller. It has an audio jack, back
Paddles.
buttons, and the C button, obviously. It just seems like a upgraded Pro controller. Looks great.
I kind of really want it. Mainly, I'll wait to talk about this until later. There's a specific game I'll talk about this with.
Okay, all right. Now, one thing I do wonder is, do all existing Switch...
I looked this up. All existing controllers for the Switch 1 are compatible and usable with the Switch 2. So you can use your existing Pro controller, you can use your existing Joy-Cons, you can use all of that on the new Switch.
That's great. That's awesome. I wasn't sure, but I think this is one of those things. If it didn't work, I'd probably be a little upset because they should work. You know, aside from the games that require mouse input or whatever.
Right, because it's like when the Wii U came out, they didn't make you buy new Wiimotes, right?
Yeah.
So like it makes sense for them to kind of continue that pattern, which I appreciate as well. I agree with you.
I do hope that there's an elegant solution for how you pull up the chat menu if you're using a controller that doesn't have the C button. Like, can you hold down the home button and pull up a thing? You know, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that would be like a fair, I don't want to say a simple software upgrade because I don't know how to write software like that, but like I feel like that would be something that's feasible, right?
Or like if you double click the home button, it functions as a C button.
I mean, they send updates to controllers, so why not?
Yeah, it should be possible. But we'll see. And then we got the launch date, June 5th. That was
this
was
shook
a surprise.
Me. This shook me.
I didn't see that coming, man.
So off podcast, you know, I had shared how there had been rumors coming around that, you know, it was supposed to be June because an unnamed retail chain published an inventory report that mentioned something about having them in stock in June. And then the fact that Nintendo's fiscal year ends in March, so waiting until the end of the year to release the Switch 2 means that they'd only have the first 3 months of sales for this fiscal year, and they don't have a whole lot of other software coming out, or they didn't have a whole lot of other software coming out before this direct. And so they were like, it doesn't make sense for them to have such a long gap. But no, I mean, we were both skeptical, and I think we mentioned that we hoped that the rumor was true, but we were too scared to get our hopes up to actually think it.
Yeah, I didn't expect it. I did not expect it.
And it's not even like June 30th, right? Like when summer's like in full swing. No, it's June
It's the
5th, bro.
smack beginning of June. You get it for summer.
You get it for the entire summer break.
I mean, imagine you're a kid in school.
Oh, dude.
You know, you got like your little job you do, gig after school, right? You save up money for this. You buy it at the beginning of summer. You've got it for the whole summer break. Like, fantastic timing. Awesome, man.
And what was crazy to me was they announced the launch date for 2 months out.
Yeah.
Like, that's such a quick turnaround.
It is.
The fact that this didn't get leaked, too, like a full-on leak, is crazy, because
it's impressive.
Leaks have been a huge issue for everyone, and somehow they kept this under wraps, which is crazy to me.
They must have threatened the crap out of everybody. It's like, if
we
leaks,
find out, if it leaks at all, everyone is fired. Every last one of you is out of a job.
Yeah.
They didn't actually do that, but anyway. Okay.
Man, they are the litigation masters. Okay, some games will get an upgrade that if you have the existing game, you don't have to buy it all over again. You can just buy the upgrade package or whatever. We don't know the pricing on it. At least I haven't seen it around. And those games include Mario Party Jamboree. That's really cool, because I've been wondering, I was like, I want to get Mario Party Jamboree because it looks like kind of like the best Mario Party I've seen in a really, really long time. But I've been holding out because I'm like, are they just going to come out with a new one when the Switch 2 comes out? But now I have my answer. You can just buy the upgrade package to get it, have those additional game modes and benefits for the Switch 2. And Zelda's, both Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, will get an upgrade. It's basically, you're going to get better resolution, quality frame rate.
Do you want to know something about that real quick?
Yeah.
Those upgrades are supposed to come for free to NSO members.
No way. Even the base tier NSO members? How'd you find out?
Keep talking.
Okay.
I'll get the confirmed.
Holy cow.
Getting your heart racing out
I'm
here.
I'm trying to think, is that enough to get me to play those again? I don't know, man, but that's super exciting. Oh, sorry, it brought me back to the top. And in Metroid Prime 4 is going to be cross-gen, just like we thought. So there's going to be a version on the Switch, and then there's going to be a version on the Switch 2. And it was during this game's presentation that they specifically said, you can choose between 4K 60 mode or 1080p 120 mode.
Okay. For the Zelda games, it's not just an NSO. If you already own the original games, the upgrades will be available as separate purchases or at no additional cost if you have a Nintendo Switch Online and expansion pack subscription.
So you need the expansion.
You need the expansion pack.
Okay.
But for people that are already paying for that, free upgrade.
And the expansion pack isn't even that expensive. So, and I have a friend in mind I can think of right now that I think is gonna replay it because he's got that. Drag Drive. This is the new IP you've been asking for. What did you think about it?
Yeah, so here's the problem, right? I made a big old deal about asking for a new IP. I didn't
You
exactly
got it,
ask
man.
for wheelchair racing and wheelchair basketball.
What's wrong with wheelchair basketball?
So here's the actual problem.
Okay.
It's 100% like the way they want you to use the controllers.
Yeah.
Like the dragging actually is really, really off-putting to me as a gameplay idea. But I've actually been grappling with this in my head. I'm like, okay, but I asked for a new IP.
They handed it to you.
Like they actually
platter.
gave, but like then I think, okay, but is this a new IP or is this like the actual Wii Sports of the Switch 2 where it's based on, a very, very specific function of the new remote?
This is the arms of the Switch 2, man.
That's probably a better comparison.
Yeah.
So like I want to support it because I want to support Nintendo developing new IPs. But there's almost nothing about this that is appealing to me, which is so unfortunate because I'm like, well, do I just fork over the the cash anyway to, support them continuing new stuff? Or do I hold out and then just keep complaining about how there's no new IPs, which isn't a better reaction?
That's the thing I was saying last time, man. It's like when they come out with new IPs, half the time I'll look at it, think, hey, that's cool. Never buy it.
Yeah, so I don't know what to do. It's actually like something that I've spent more time thinking about than I thought I would, because I have no interest in playing it. But I can't sit here and complain about no new IPs if I don't buy the new IPs,
True. I don't know if I'm gonna get it. I'm still trying to come to terms with realistically how you're gonna play this game. So like, do you need a desk? Are you gonna do it on
like
your
a flat
lap?
surface, right?
Right. It would be awkward to do it on your lap. It's not gonna be comfortable. And most people are going to play their Switches either in handheld or on a TV in their living room on a couch. So do you need to pull out like a portable desk, coffee table, just like a, nail together a couple 2x4s and put it on your lap or something? Like, I don't know. I'm not 100% sold on dual mouse mode, as the main point of gameplay, but it's cool, and I hope it succeeds. I'll be curious to see what the reviews are like. But yeah. And does that mean you can't play it in handheld mode? Probably not. Or do you have an option to play it with sticks somehow? But if you do, because that's like an online game from what I understand, it wouldn't put everybody on equal footing, right? So, I don't know. We'll see, man. Holy cow, we got some big hitters. Elden Ring is coming to the Switch too.
So that was crazy.
That's crazy, dude.
The fact that... So Elden Ring's a big game, right? Now, Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom are also big games. Massive games. But they don't look like Elden Ring looks, right? Elden Ring's art style takes so much power to run on a system because of the artistic choices that they made. Like when I saw that, I was like, holy cow. That's a huge get. And I think a lot of people now, I mean, I'm sure Elden Ring's on Steam, so I guess portable Elden Ring is probably already a thing.
But I doubt it runs decent on Steam Deck, let's be real. Like, I wouldn't choose to play it portably,
Yeah.
For example, I have Cyberpunk on Steam, and I've played it a couple times handheld, but
the performance just doesn't hold up.
It runs, it's okay, but when I'm used to like 70 frames per second on my PC, it's hard to go to 40.
Yeah.
And then it's a little grainy looking, but I'm curious to see how it actually looks in person running. What's the real world performance going to be like? They announced Hades 2 for the Switch. Sorry, did you have anything else to say on Elden Ring?
No.
Okay. Hogwarts Legacy, freaking hype. That's fantastic. And then they announced Project 007.
Yeah.
That, man, when the music started playing and I heard like the first 2-3 notes, I was like, could it be? Is it 007? Because the N64 one, man, that has a special place in my heart because I used to play with my friends in Japan all the time. Okay, I'm probably in the minority on this. I don't know how many people like these games, but Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment, that was one of the highlights of the Direct for me. I am so excited for it. I love that they're covering another, space and time that the original game doesn't cover, and just spinning that into another Warriors game. Like, I know that my brother Noah and I are gonna play through that whole thing start to finish co-op.
No, I as soon as I saw the Koei Tecmo logo, I knew. I was like, they're doing another Hyrule Warriors, but I didn't know which way they were gonna go.
Me neither.
I think the time period that they chose is cool, especially because like you won't have Link.
I know. Well, I was wondering, like, you're kind of limited, right? Like,
Like you have
Who's gonna be playable? Zelda,
you have Zelda, the
Minoru?
King and the Queen,
King and the Queen.
Mineru, and then the Four Sages, and that's all. Like
Yeah.
that's all you have.
And Warriors games are known for like having a ton of playable characters. So
Right,
like,
'cause
what
they
are they
have-
gonna do to pad that out? I'm curious. I'm sure they'll get creative. That can't be the only ones. But
Yeah, I mean, Age of Calamity did some weird time travel stuff to bring stuff together. So it's entirely possible that
that's true.
maybe
Yeah.
those 8 are what you're limited to for the campaign itself, and then when you're doing through challenges or time trials or other stuff, you kind of unlock a much bigger roster,
Very
which
possible.
I think makes sense. But
I'm so excited for that, man. Oh my
Mhm.
gosh. The expansion pack for NSO adds GameCube.
so this was actually heartbreaking for me because they showed Wind Waker,
Mm-hmm.
and it was the original Wind Waker, and it destroys all hopes that I have that Wind Waker HD will ever be ported.
I think you're right.
It
Why do that when they already have the original on
it,
NSO?
it killed me. Well,
I'm
do it so that
sorry,
I can
man.
buy it. You just have to produce one copy.
Yeah.
Just make one copy, sell it to me for $100, and I'll buy it. I'm not even joking. I would pay $100 to have
Yeah.
Wind Waker HD on the Switch.
I know you would, man.
100%.
Oh my
Um,
word.
No, but so outside of that, right? The fact that they're bringing GameCube is huge. And as much as I harp about Wind Waker HD, poor F-Zero fans haven't had a new game in ages, and now they get to play F-Zero GX, which, from what I understand, is like kind of the consensus best in
That's
the F-Zero
what
series,
I've heard
right?
from from FZO fans.
So-
it's the best one.
So you're getting to have that. They're going to be adding, other GameCube games on. No mention of Super Smash Brothers Melee.
I was looking for that when they had the banner scrolling. I was like, are they putting Melee on here? Are they putting Melee on here? Because that could impact what they use at tournaments. That means that using the Switch 2 at tournaments could be viable. But I didn't see it on there. Maybe they don't dare touch it. I don't know.
It's very intriguing and is causing a lot of skepticism and rumors and theories
Yeah.
among both.
Who knows, man? Oh shoot! I had something I needed to talk about. It was one of the GameCube games. Oh, come on.
Wind Waker, F-Zero. What was the other one? I don't know what the other ones were.
I've lost it. I'll have to come back to it later, maybe.
Okay.
The new wireless GameCube controller.
Mm-hmm.
I really want that.
Mm-hmm.
But I wonder, is it going to play nice? Is it going to work on PC? Is it going to work? Because like the regular Pro Controller works on PC, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is it going to work on, like if I were to use it for Smash Ultimate, would it work?
Mm-hmm.
If the answer is yes, I have to buy it. There's no agency in the matter.
Okay. So question. On your desk right there, you have your converted original, well, I guess at this point, hybrid GameCube controller, right? Where you have your orange on the front, the black Smash Ultimate Edition on the back.
Yep.
You converted this to be a wireless. Does the new one replace that, or do you just re-Frankenstein it where you just throw the orange one on the new one? You throw the orange front on the new GameCube controller.
I don't think the shell will match
Okay.
because this doesn't have the other buttons that the new one does. Because
That's
the new
true.
one has the C button and the home button and
Right.
all those things that this one doesn't have. Yeah. Like which one ends up being like my main GameCube controller will totally depend on one, how it feels. If it feels the same and the way I need it to feel, then it could take the place of this one. The one thing that is inconvenient about this one is that if I want to turn off the console or use the home button in any way, I can't. So I have to get up to turn off the Switch when I'm done. So having like those extra buttons on this would be nice. But anyway.
That's the OG, man.
It is the OG. It
And,
is
like,
the OG.
if it ever gets retired, like you have to like put that in like a display case or something, man. Like you can't ever let that bad boy go.
And I don't think I'll ever fully retire this, if I'm being honest, because even if I buy the new one and I use that for Smash Ultimate, whatever Switch games, I would probably just leave that as my dedicated Switch GameCube controller, and then just use this one for
Your PC
Rivals.
stuff.
Rivals of Aether 2. I mean, not Marvel Rivals, for my PC stuff. So then I don't have to like resync and do all that stuff, you know. But yes,
I knew that was gonna be huge for you.
yeah, dude.
No,
Honestly,
and
so sick.
no, I've definitely been intrigued as well, but I definitely want to get reviews and an understanding of how it works with the entire library as a whole before I make any commitments, especially because
Me too,
between
actually.
that
Yeah.
and the upgraded Switch Pro, I would probably go with the Switch Pro personally. I prefer the Switch Pro controller. I know that's probably blasphemous for so many of you, because I think the consensus is that the GameCube is a perfect video game controller. I prefer the Switch Pro, but so I guess we'll see. I guess we'll see where we're at.
Yeah, if it's mainly just for the NSO GameCube games, I won't bother with it, you know. But, Borderlands 4 is coming to Switch too.
Yep.
That's cool. I know a lot of people love Borderlands. Cyberpunk 2077, and like I mentioned, FF7 Remake Intergrade. You already have that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you won't really. I don't think you're rebuying it, are you?
No.
Yeah.
And then, did they announce the Rebirth's coming as well?
They didn't.
Okay.
I didn't see Rebirth,
Okay.
and I was wondering about it, but that might be maybe down the pipeline. A new From Software game. Do you have some thoughts on this?
This one drove me crazy. Like, this is the one that I've been dying to talk about.
Okay. The Dusk Bloods, right?
So, From Software is a company that I've wanted to get into so much, but I've always felt that I'm not good enough at video games to get into From Software games. Now, from an outside perspective, Bloodborne has always been the franchise that fascinates me the most because of the setting and the fact that it's a more, whereas a lot of where the Dark Souls games are very much defensive, Bloodborne encourages you to be a little bit more aggressive and on the attack. And I'm like, that seems like it'd be a more fun game, higher risk, higher reward type beat. And so when I saw this, because it starts and it, shows kind of like this vampire-y stuff with the From Software logo, and I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Is this now granted, because I haven't actually played Bloodborne myself, I was like, oh, maybe they're just like they're finally bringing Bloodborne off the PS4 because it's been stuck there for forever.
Right.
People have been begging for it to be
No
ported, remastered, remade, whatever. And then it continued to go and go and go, and I was like, I've watched a lot of videos on Bloodborne, and there's a couple things in here I don't recognize at all.
Yeah.
And then they had the freaking moon that was the freaking Yoko Taro face, and I was like,
I know.
is this From Software and freaking Yoko Taro working together on something? What is happening?
Yeah.
And then it's the Dusk Bloods. Dude. I'm very, very tempted by this one. There's one problem though. They've announced more details on like what it is. It looks like it's not a single player game. Like it's a PvP PvE game.
Okay. So it's not a traditional.
It's not like a single player RPG.
Yeah.
It looks like it's a multiplayer competitive game, which took so much excitement out of me once I found that out.
Dude, I'm so sorry. Was that on a different?
Yeah,
page
it wasn't
saw
within the
or
trailer. It was as they did more press releases and interviews and stuff. But it is being directed by the brain trust of Hidetaka Miyazaki, who's run everything from Software. Everything that From Software has done that's acclaimed came from him, right? So people trust him as, a top 3 game director in the industry right now, if not a top 1. So if he's on board with it, if he's designing and this is his vision, I'm intrigued to see on it. And I guess I'll just kind of be sitting on the edge of my seat waiting to get more and more information on it. And it's exclusive. It's exclusive to the Switch too, man.
Is it actually exclusive?
Exclusive for the Nintendo Switch too.
That's crazy. I didn't realize that. Holy cow.
Isn't that wild?
Exclusive from software.
So from software fans,
Nintendo console.
from software fans that might not have bought a Nintendo Switch are now going to buy a Nintendo Switch 2 just to play this game.
Holy
with the hope
cow,
that it
dude.
might be like Bloodborne. Isn't that nuts? Isn't that nuts, man?
I'm so curious to see the reviews on it when they come out.
I really want to see. I really hope it does well. If it does well, I might end up picking it up.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, we'll have to see. There's a lot of factors on that one, but
now the next one was huge for me. Kirby Air Riders. I cannot tell you how many hours I spent in Kirby Air Ride on the GameCube. Like, my sister and I played that for hours and hours and hours. City Trials is amazing.
I remember you telling us about this on the podcast. It was a while ago, but I remember you mentioning, and like, you mentioned that like you guys would decide whose houses were whose, right? And you guys would just go around, dude, and like,
exactly.
Like, it's huge. And sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I hope they have like all of those things that that Kirby Air Ride fans would expect to have in a sequel, and then some. It's spearheaded by freaking Sakurai. Right. So that's what he's been working on.
I thought it was fascinating that they obviously know what they have in Sakurai.
Yes.
Because no other Nintendo developed games were like, oh, this is directed by blank and blank. But on that one, they made sure to mention directed by Masahiro Sakurai. And it's crazy.
That guy does not miss. He does not miss. Even if he ends up in the hospital, he does not miss. So I'm so excited for that game. I cannot wait for it. And that's going to come out this year. I don't think we had a month or anything. It's just 2025, right? Yeah, man. And then the last one, Donkey Kong Bonanza. Now, as soon as I saw this, oh my gosh, my headphones, man. As soon as I saw this, I was like, it all makes sense now. Like, I should have known from the moment I saw a Donkey Kong redesign that it was because he was going to get a brand new mainline title. Like, as soon as I saw that, I was like, it's so obvious. Why didn't I realize that? I'm actually really excited for this game. And I'm excited for this game more than I would be if it were just, I don't want to say just another 3D Mario game, because 3D Mario games are always great, but I don't know. It's just good variety that's getting me excited. I think I'm gonna buy that game actually, and I'm not really a huge Donkey Kong guy, But what were your impressions?
No, so at first, as I was watching it, I was really, really disappointed when I saw Donkey Kong come out. Because I was like, this was supposed to be Mario. What the frick? And then I kind of like I let it set in. And I was watching as they were going through the gameplay, and the ways that this game looks like it's playing so far. I'm like, okay, this isn't Mario, but this is made by the same company that makes Mario 3D platformers. And Astro Bot as a 3D platformer is a phenomenal game. So I think I enjoy 3D platformers a lot more than I tend to think of, like when because I just tend to think of Mario, right? Yeah. But I think as a genre, as a whole, if it's creative and it's got so many different ideas, which it looks like this game has, it could be good. Now, I think for me, what's going to determine whether I buy it, it's going to come down to one very big thing. It's going to come down to how quickly I'm ready to move on from Mario Kart World. This summer, something we haven't discussed on the podcast yet. I have an internship coming up this summer that I'm very excited for, and I think I'll withhold specific details of that just for a while until I'm actually in the process of in it. But I'm going to be a little bit busier this summer than I have been in summers in the past. So I'm not entirely sure how much game time I will have. Now, Donkey Kong comes out in the middle of July, so about a month and a half after the system launches. If after a month and a half of Mario Kart, I'm ready for something new, especially because after Donkey Kong, I don't think the next game that comes out that I know I'm going to buy is Metroid, which is at some point at the end of the year.
Anything on PS5?
There's one game that I got my eyes on, but it doesn't have it has a 2025 release date, but not,
Okay.
it just has a release year, right? Not a release date. Now, on this internship, I'm not taking the PS5 with me, so I'm just going to have the Switch that I'm playing.
You're not taking it with you?
Mm-mm.
Why?
Because
You just don't think you'll need it?
I am doing it in a way to encourage myself to live a little bit more. So I'll be interning in California, and I think Liv and I want to take advantage of that and not.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Especially because we're only there for the summer, just to kind of see what things are like. So we kind of agreed the PlayStation would stay here while I'm gone. So it'll just be the Switch over the summer. So
Just the Switch 2 then, I'd imagine. Because you'll move everything over from your original Switch.
yeah.
Okay.
So
Very admirable.
we'll see. We'll see. No, so I'm excited. I think that I will buy it. I think I will.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But it's not a instant day one buy like a Mario, like a Zelda, like a Smash would be.
True.
Like Mario Kart will be. It's not that for me yet.
I think I'm in the same boat.
But I know so many people are excited. So many people have been asking for Donkey Kong for so long.
Mm-hmm.
And Nintendo's made it clear that Donkey Kong's kind of become just another side character in the Mario universe. And they want to reestablish him as one of their, premium IPs.
Mm-hmm.
It looks great. So
Yeah.
I believe in the project, and I hope that it performs well so that I'm encouraged to buy it and enjoy it and love it.
Yeah. I think, like you said, when I buy it will depend on, for me, just whatever games I'm playing at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Once I get to a good point, then I'll probably buy it. It makes sense that it's a Donkey Kong IP because of how the gameplay looks.
Mm-hmm.
And the gameplay looks fun.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm pretty excited for that, yeah. And that was pretty much the end of the direct.
Yes. One thing, I don't know if we mentioned it, but one thing I wanted to ask you about when we were talking about mouse controls on the Switch. They made sure to mention that in Metroid Prime 4, when they announced that it would be getting both an original Switch and a Switch 2 edition, that on the Switch 2 version, you'd be able to use mouse controls to play it. And you mentioned just a few minutes ago, or within this episode, that you want to see how the mouse functions within FPSs.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you had to guess right now, do you play Metroid Prime 4 with the mouse Joy-Cons or just with a Pro controller? Or a GameCube controller, I guess.
Yeah, I wondered that when I was watching it too, like which method I would prefer. The thing about Metroid that makes it different from other FPSs is that you have that lock-on feature where you can lock onto the enemy. So like aiming is really not that much of an issue unless you're trying to do something very specific. So I'll probably mess around with both options when it comes out. See which one feels better for me, and also see, am I willing to pull out a table, put it in the middle of my living room just to play with mouse controls that may or may not be comfortable. I don't know. We'll see. I like the idea of it though, and then for other games like, I don't know if like Call of Duty is ever going to come over, or like Fortnite or whatever, right? Super popular. For games like that, it would make a lot of sense for them to use that mouse, especially. Yeah.
Okay.
Now, our Discord has been kind of going crazy. If you don't know, we have a Downloadable Content Discord server. There's an invite to the link in the description below. Check it out. Join us. We have a good time in there. A lot of good discourse over our podcast and a lot of other stuff. Zach, and I got permission from him to read what he said in here. This is kind of a discussion point that he brings up, and we wanted to talk about this. Are you okay on time, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, so I have notes written out specifically in response to what he said to share kind of my opinion. So if the way that we kind of want to do it is you'll read a portion from Zach and then I'll kind of pause you and
Stop me
share.
whenever you want
Okay.
me to stop, and then you can come out with your opinion.
And before we do this, these are opinions. Opinions, okay? We don't think differently of anyone. But I will say before we get into it that as normal, I'm going to be presenting a very different opinion from it seems like most of our Discord. So don't hate me. Don't kill me. Don't think that I hate you for thinking otherwise. We're a very neutral area.
Yeah.
Just vibe.
Yeah.
Listen. Have a good time. Okay.
And at the end of the day, these are just opinions of people that are not at the top executive positions of Nintendo, right? So our perspectives, no matter what, is going to be limited. So whoever's right or wrong really doesn't matter at the end of the day. We're just here to discuss and have a good time. So I'll just read off what Zach typed out. He said, turns out physical games will be more expensive. $90.
Hey guys, this is SJ. I just wanted to throw out a quick disclaimer. I'm editing right now, and after we recorded this, there was a couple other pieces of information that came out. So we were working with relatively limited information, and some of the stuff we state in here may not be factually correct. Like, for example, in the US, I don't think, from what I can see right now this morning, that physical is going to cost $90. What it actually looks like is it's $80 digital and physical in the US. I believe in Europe they're going to be paying 10 more pounds or something like that for physical. That may be the case, but I think the substance of the discussion of what we talk about here is still good and is still what we kind of our take on this whole situation. So just keep that in mind as you're listening. You know, if you notice any factual inaccuracies, that's why. Sorry about that. All right, back to it.
They're going indie dev pricing logic on us. Hollow Knight Digital is $15, but the cartridge was like $25.
Okay. One thing I want to point out there real quick. Mario Kart is confirmed to launch 80 digital, 90 physical. Donkey Kong is confirmed to launch 70 digital, 80 physical. So Nintendo discussed this with Tears of the Kingdom, that they were going to begin approaching a project by project basis for deciding on prices. So we've been aware that prices were going to fluctuate. They were going to change depending on what it was. Now the plus 10 for physical, I think it makes sense. It's unfortunate, right? Like it is unfortunate, but like it also makes sense to me why they are more expensive than just a digital file. And I guess it will kind of depend on like a game by game basis, depending on how much I want to play it. If that extra $10 is really worth it. Like for Zelda, for Mario, for Metroid, games that I know I'm going to buy, I'm pretty sure I'll still just buy the physical copies anyway. Whereas for games that I might be a little bit more skeptical on, and maybe that $10 is the make or break, we'll kind of see how that goes.
Actually, before we go on to the rest of the stuff that Zach said, I do want to bring up one thing that I'm not sure if you're aware of. They are going to have alternative game cards that are called game key cards. Did you read that about that? So, we don't know which games are going to feature this. I think Mortal Kombat for sure is confirmed to be this way. But what it is, so from my understanding, almost all Switch games right now, the entirety of the 1.0 version of the game is contained within the cartridge. And then you can download an update, but you don't need the internet at all whatsoever or download anything to play the game. You can play it exclusively off of the cartridge. What these unique cards are going to be, so-called game key cards, it's basically just an authenticating physical medium that's going to allow Nintendo to know, oh, you own a copy of this game. Here, you can download it. So basically, it's a digital game, but your proof of ownership is a physical key. Do you have thoughts before I continue? I have my opinion
From
on
what
it.
I understand, it's because of these games that have file sizes that are just bigger than what the Switch cartridges are able to contain, right?
I believe the Switch 2 carts are going to be 62 gig
Okay.
carts from what I heard from another YouTuber online, so it could be right or wrong, but it makes sense logically speaking, right? So like what this compromise does, say you have a game, for example, let's say you get a Call of Duty on the Switch. It's like 100 gigs. There's no way it would fit on a 64 gig cart. So you release the digital version. And for people that still want some kind of physical aspect, you get the game key card. Now, whether these are going to be like $10 more expensive, we don't know. I think that's probably going to be just up to whoever is developing and publishing that game. But essentially what it allows you to do is, even though you don't have the 1.0 game and you still have to download the video game, right? You need internet access to be able to play the game, at least get it downloaded first. Because after you've downloaded it once, you don't need to be connected to the internet at all. You can play the game. But what this allows you to do is retain resale value. So you can still sell the key card later to someone else, get money for it, and then they will be able to play the game. You can't do that with digital games. So I think it's a decent compromise. I don't think it's the best solution in terms of video game preservation. It makes me wonder what's going to happen to video games that are tied to this kind of system, 20 years down the road, when inevitably the Switch online system shuts down. You would probably lose access to that game unless you had it downloaded on your system.
See now, and this has kind of been a thing on consoles actually for a while now. For example, Red Dead Redemption 2 comes with multiple discs. The first disc is just a download disc that just downloads data, and then you have to have the second disc that acts as, in this case, like the game card that you use to play. So it's kind of a similar system. There's precedence within the industry for this type of system to be used before. I haven't heard too many issues or complaints with it, so I think it'll work just fine without any snags or anything.
It's just relatively new for
Nintendo, right?
Yeah. And it's an industry-wide concern that I have, is like all of these games that rely on internet downloads. What happens when those systems are shut down in the future?
Right.
That's just my only concern. So those exist. So I just wanted to throw that out because we're talking about physical media and stuff like that. But my understanding is I don't know if any Nintendo first party games are going to be like that. I'd imagine Nintendo is probably going to want to have their game on the cartridge itself. But that's just kind of our speculation. We'll see. So let me get back to what Zach was saying. Because he was cooking in here. Okay. He says, I genuinely cannot stomach that. And he's referencing the fact that physical games are more expensive, $90 for Mario Kart. And then the digital is the one that's like $10 cheaper. And he says, and this does not inspire confidence in those Switch 2 upgrade options. Watch it be an eye-watering $30 to do what emulators have been doing for free for a decade.
So this is a great point that I wanted to talk about real quick. I don't think it's going to be $30. I think what it'll probably be is when Tears of the Kingdom launched, it launched for $69.99. You just subtract that from whatever it would be to buy the new Switch 2 edition physically on a Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, and that's what you pay. They might even base it off of the digital price because you're just upgrading off, like you're just downloading an upgrade, right? Mm-hmm. So I think it'll be $10 to $20 depending on the game. I don't think it'll get up to $30. Now I can understand the concern, but I just don't envision that being the reality, I guess.
I don't think it'll be $30 either. I guess we'll find out. $20 would
it's
be
a lot.
On the high
it's
end
a lot
for
an
me.
Upgrade.
I
don't think
$20 I wouldn't buy it.
No, yeah, I wouldn't do 20 for the stuff like the Zeldas. Now, like For example, they brought up how like Kirby is getting like a couple extra or an extra world,
Oh, yeah.
an extra story or something. That makes a little bit more sense to pay the $20 upgrade.
Yeah, if you're getting more gameplay functionality
Right.
and stuff, it's like a pseudo DLC.
Right. So if it's just performance upgrades, I would kind of cap it at 10 personally on my own purchases. So we'll see.
Okay, and then he kind of brings up another topic. So I want to address the thing, physical media being more expensive. So that there's two things with the pricing. So like one is, okay, physical is more expensive, digital is like $10 cheaper. And then the other thing is variable pricing, right? So like not all physical games are going to be $80. Like you said, Donkey Kong is going to be 80, right?
Right.
Did you say
Donkey Kong's $10 cheaper than Mario Kart?
Donkey
no
Kong
matter
is
what
$10
medium
cheaper
you
than
buy.
Mario Kart. Variable pricing, that is nothing new to me. I grew up in Japan where variable pricing on video games, that's the norm. Like you expect to pay top dollar for games like Super Smash Brothers. That was always the most expensive video game on any console. Variable pricing it only makes sense. That's how the world market functions. It's actually abnormal that the video game industry has this set price expectation that you expect every single AAA game to be the exact same price.
Well, the other thing that kind of that I thought about on this, right, is he brings up indie games, right?
Right.
But not every indie game's priced the same. Some indie games launch at 5, some at 10, some at 15, some at 20, some at 25, some at 30. Like,
right.
The developers have the freedom to set their price based off of what they think their game is worth and what public interest has been so far. And I think that's totally fine. I have a couple other thoughts about price, but I'll actually save it because there's other comments that he made that I think help me illustrate my opinion on it a little bit clearer. But that's where I'm at with price.
Okay. No.
Sorry, do you have other stuff to add on that real quick?
Yeah,
price?
Just a little bit. So the variable pricing thing doesn't bother me. It only makes sense. You know, games that cost more, that take more money to develop, that people are willing to pay more for.
Mm-hmm.
It only makes sense that those things would be priced higher, right? Like you wouldn't compare a Walmart couch to a couch from some expensive outlet.
Mm-hmm.
Like and the digital games being cheaper, like that only makes sense for me too. And in my mind, that's just Nintendo's way of allowing us an option to pay less money because they don't have to dish out the expenses, right? To pump out these actual cartridges that have actual storage capacity and stuff. Especially with them getting larger and higher capacity. I don't know. I choose to look at that as a way of Nintendo just offering another option for us, right? It's like, hey, if you don't want to pay the higher expense for the cartridge, you can buy the digital. I guess for the physical lovers, it sucks a little bit because we've been used to having the same price on digital and physical for a very, very long time. But I think it only makes sense that they're making this transition. And I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of the rest of the industry kind of follows suit, which won't be... a lot of people, won't be happy with it. But just from like a logical standpoint, it makes sense.
Right, and I think if it was only a $5 difference, I don't think it would be as much of an issue for people. I think $5 is a little bit more palatable.
Yeah.
But I mean, no, I agree, and I think especially now where there's so many issues about game ownership in the future, right? Like when servers for consoles get shut down 10, 15 years from now, as they move on, you're paying an extra $10 now to have access to that game for as long as you own that cartridge. Whereas if you download a game and then you have to delete it off your system to restore or to download other games, and then the servers go down and you're not able to re-download that, then you're kind of in a tough position. It's kind of like an insurance policy to me, where you pay a little bit extra now to kind of ensure that you keep access to it as long as your system keeps working. It's not great, and I think that's a huge topic that we'll kind of come back to is,
yes,
well, this is a change and we haven't had to do this before now. But it's there's nothing that's going to change it, right? This is the new reality. This is where it's going, and be frustrated about it, feel it, absolutely. But
Yeah, the part of it that sucks is that we and this is kind of like taking Zach's side a little bit, that I personally agree with as well. Like it does, it kind of rubs me the wrong way that we as the consumers are the ones that are having to pay more money to preserve their video games, because we all know they're not going to preserve it forever. So like we're bearing the brunt of that responsibility because video game companies aren't preserving their games. So like that's the thing that bothers me a little bit about it. I still haven't decided whether I'm going to jump ship over to digital, because if I'm saving like almost $10 on every major AAA Nintendo release, that adds up, right? $10 is significant. So would I be willing to risk,
so here's my question for you. And if you choose to do that, that's great. We know the Switch has a limited storage capacity. So with all that money that you're saving, aren't you then just going to have to turn around and buy a new micro SD express card to fit those new digital games on instead?
You are so right.
Like, I think in the long run, I don't think you save money doing one or the other.
Yeah, I guess it depends on how expensive the micro SD express card
is. I guess I shouldn't say that you won't save any money, because that could be 100% false. But that's a cost that you take into account that you need to consider if you're going digital only. But yeah,
I just want to look up real quick. Micro SD card express 1 terabyte. I just want to see how expensive that is. Do they even have? Ooh, okay, a 256 is $60. I don't see a 1 terabyte option. Maybe it's not a thing right now.
Micro SD Express.
Is there anything above 256?
I see.
Because that's very expensive.
I see Safari's AI giving me an option, but I'm not seeing.
I'm on Amazon.
The AI option says that there's a 1 terabyte card for $200, but I'm not actually seeing that on any. Nope, on any shopping sites. I'm only seeing 256 as the highest.
2 terabytes. Yeah, I only see 256. So micro SD express cards, I think from what we can see, they are gonna be expensive. It's probably the top of the line SD cards right now, and it'll take a long time for them to get cheaper. Even like 128 gigs is $45 on Amazon from a SanDisk. It's a SanDisk one.
That's what I'm seeing. And then 256 jumps up to 60.
Is 60. That's the best value for money right now. So that means you're topping out at half a terabyte on the Switch 2, and if you're going digital and you play a fair amount of games, like that's going to fill up quick.
The main problem is if you're buying third-party games to play on the Switch, those game files are huge, man.
I know, dude.
They're like,
I know.
Red Dead Redemption 2 would fill up like 70% of one of those 256 cards. Like that game is massive. I assume Elden Ring's got to be a similar size.
Oh, it's got to be huge.
Yeah, but
yeah, man. So that kind of sucks.
That's hard.
But we'll see how it is,
Yep.
Okay, let me continue. Zach's TED Talk here, as he called it. He said, okay, so after saying, hey, watch it be an eye-watering $30 to do what emulators have been doing for free for a decade. He says, or Nintendo could just start selling their games on PC and get all the Steam Deck users who left Nintendo for these reasons and make a ton of money that way, but that would make too much sense. Sony and Nintendo, man. Sony finally came around, and he's referencing the fact that a lot of Sony exclusive games are now coming to PC. Sony finally came around, but they had to come kicking and screaming and absolutely obliterated Helldivers 2's momentum with their PSN insanity, PlayStation Network. Watching Sony enter the PC space is like watching a traumatized cat mauling people trying to fill their food bowl until they're like, oh wait, what crack am I smoking? And as someone who works in the marketing industry, I just know it's coming from up top because of fear/prejudice/bias against the PC community, at least for Nintendo right now. Because releasing a game for PC will not mean people won't buy a console anymore. So he's essentially saying Nintendo should release their games on PC because it's going to net them more money. A $500 Switch 2 that can play Mario Kart World at 4K is a significantly cheaper and simpler option than a $1,500 plus PC. I'd argue that the overwhelming majority of Switch users would still buy a Switch and games on the Switch, and that it wouldn't really affect console sales that much. Should I keep going, or do you have thoughts?
I share my thoughts with this later because it connects to a point he makes down below.
Okay. Well, my last thoughts on this pipe dream of an issue is that the irrational fear that releasing these games for purchase on PC would tank the company via lost console sales. So what he's saying is, a lot of people say, keep the video games exclusive to a console because that's what draws the people to that ecosystem and buy the consoles, right? And a lot of people say, well, Nintendo is never going to release their games on PC because they want their people to buy their hardware. And then he continues, according to my napkin math, it should actually help the company, if anything, to release a game on PC. Case in point, the Wii U. Imagine if the Wii U's games were available on PC. I'm one of the 12 people on the planet who bought a Wii U, but what if you could have bought Mario Kart 8 for PC with PC online multiplayer? That would have more than compensated for the abysmal lack of Wii U console sales. Might have a point there. For context, when Sony released Horizon Zero Dawn on PC, they garnered over 2.4 million units sold in 18 months. That's roughly 10% of the game's entire sales. And 2.4 million people that either A, were never going to buy a PlayStation to begin with, or B, are like me and would never buy it again for the objectively better experience on PC. And by that point, the game was old news too. It had been out for like 3 years already. Imagine the units that could be sold by releasing Mario Kart 8 on PC alongside the Wii U release.
Okay. I got some thoughts.
Okay.
I think part of this makes sense. I can understand the perspective. I think there's a couple small factors that aren't being considered. About 50% of sales is solely based on money, and then the other 50% is based off of a whole lot of intangible benefits that a company gets by selling a product a certain way. Nintendo having their products exclusive to Nintendo and people having to play Nintendo games through a Nintendo console opens up a lot of opportunities for marketing through the homepage, through creating the community, and if their desire is to keep local multiplayer gameplay going, that is best done by controlling their games to be on consoles where they're able to influence how gaming happens within their products, right? I think that's something that you don't see on a pure sales number basis, and I think Nintendo's okay sacrificing, increasing their sales for maintaining a customer base and providing the type of service that they think gives them the most value, which is, a more social, local experience and games that are based off of the creativity of their developers instead of, pushing technical boundaries, which is what some other companies excel in. That's not really been Nintendo's main concern ever. Mm-hmm. And I think keeping things exclusive gives them a lot of benefits that aren't easily recognizable, but are things that Nintendo's not willing to give up, which I think explains why, they don't want to sell their games on other systems. I think every other gaming company on the world would happily enter into contracts to sell Nintendo games, but Nintendo doesn't want to. And I think there are reasons for that, and they, whatever they are, they have them. And I think that's kind of where I'm at on that specifically.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Let me keep reading a bit and then I'll kind of circle back to my opinions. Then he continues, so like my take is if you're that starved for money, you got to charge people $80 for Mario Party. That's a digital version. But you're still allowing Switch 1 games to run. People, and what he means is people can buy Super Mario Party for like $30 from GameStop. That's a really wild way to position yourself in the market.
Okay. This is something that I needed to mention. So Nintendo publishes an annual report every year for their stockholders. Because their fiscal year ends on March 31st and it is currently April 3rd, I don't have a report for fiscal year 2024 yet. And the most recent fiscal year, they just haven't published their report yet because they take a couple of weeks to develop their data and stuff. It's similar to how companies do 10Ks here. Because Nintendo's a Japanese company, they have different regulations, but they still put out an annual report, right? Within that statement, there's a couple numbers that I just want to share real quick. Nintendo had an operating income of $3.5 billion on their most recent report. So after all salaries, all costs, pure profits, they profited $3.5 billion. They also listed that in their cash and cash equivalent holdings of that same time of that report, they currently had $5.5 billion. Over that year, they had $8 million in costs, and it's recommended that a company have 3 to 6 months worth of expenses in cash in case something happens. So in Nintendo's case, they had $8 billion worth in costs, which means that they would need to hold 2 to 4 billion in cash in order to meet industry standard. And they actually have over that. So I don't think the starved for cash point works here as to why they're pricing the games the way that they are. They're in a very good spot based off of their financial reports. That the pricing has nothing to do with needing to take more money from their customers to make themselves profitable or anything like that. It's for all the research that they've done on what they think their value is for their pricing. They think they can sell their products for $80 and people will buy it. And that's why they've decided to set that price, not because they're in desperate need of a cash flow.
Let me play Zach's advocate here.
Yeah.
What if Zach were to say, well, that proves my point that they have a decent amount of cash on reserves above the industry norm. Why do they have to charge more money all of a sudden if they've been fine with the lower prices thus far?
Yeah. Why does a company exist?
To make money.
If a company can make money and they can raise their prices and the increase in cost is more, so if you have 100 customers and they'll pay $60 and then you raise the price to 80 and you lose 10 customers, say you lose 5 customers, even though you lose 5 customers, the increase from the price that you get still profits you more money. So Nintendo thinks that raising the price, it doesn't matter what their current cash holdings are at, but if they think they can profit more by raising the price, even if that loses them some customers based off of what their sales will retain, why wouldn't they do that?
If the net result is more,
right,
they would be losing money by not increasing.
I can understand the frustration as a consumer, right? And I'll go into more of that later, but from like a business standpoint, like that's what they have to do to continue to grow and compete in the market, because every other company is doing that. So
yeah, I think part of the frustration too is that this is going to set some kind of precedent in the industry. So a lot of other publishers might follow suit and bump up their prices as well because, oh, Nintendo did it, so we can get away with it too. You see the same thing happening in the smartphone industry a lot. You know, Apple does something that people don't like. They remove the headphone jack and then everyone else follows suit because it's cost savings. Right. That could very well happen, and it's definitely not the happiest news for consumers. But the value of any given item is defined as the amount of money that a consumer
is willing to
is
pay for
willing and able to pay for it. So if you are willing to pay $80 digital or $90 physical for Mario Kart and you buy it, that means it is worth that much. So the only situation where the pricing thing is like proved to be wild and you know, not strategic or whatever is if they end up with lost money at the end of the day. So really, like, if you don't like this move and if you're like, absolutely no way, like, I am not going to pay that much money for a video game, then great, don't buy it. And that's the thing about video games, is that it's not a necessary item. They're in the business of leisure. So they have to make their products compelling enough for you to want to go out of your way to buy their product, even though you don't really need it. So, you know, especially in a market like that, being able to price your video games variably, I think makes a lot of sense. If it's not worth it to you, don't buy it, you know, and that's your way of signaling to Nintendo, hey, I don't like this. And if enough people do that, then
they'll have to drop the price.
Then it would have been a mistake on their part, you know, and then they'll drop the price. So anyway, yeah. So let me did you have other thoughts or should I continue?
No, I have more thoughts after this next paragraph though, but go ahead.
Okay. Nintendo has always been the affordable platform. I'm really interested to see what the play here is, because now, weirdly enough, you can buy a PS5 for $450, and their games are $60 to $70 for physical and digital. Nintendo brazenly just launched a console that costs about as much as a PS5. That's still weaker by an entire generation, and the games are $10 to $20 more expensive. Console gaming has always...
Sorry.
Okay.
Gotta cut you off there. I think it makes a really good point as far as pricing it in comparison to what's currently on the market. But one other thing that I think should be kept in mind is that the PS5 and the Xbox... What's the current Xbox called? Xbox Series?
Series X?
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Launched back in 2020, which is about it was the end of 2020. So it was about 4.5 years ago when the Switch launches, or when the Switch 2 launches. And so the incoming new PlayStation and Xbox will be launching. And the PS5 Pro is retailing at $800, I think is what it's at, right?
Yeah, I don't remember.
So if you're buying the optimal experience for each console, this is still a little bit more affordable. Now, one other thing I wanted to bring up, because I love... I'll just say it. So back in 2017, the Switch launched at $300 and you spent $60 on a game. I'm not going to take into account taxes for these numbers just to keep it a little bit simpler for rounding. So that means you spent $360 at launch because you probably bought the Switch and a console, not counting other peripherals that you may have done. Now, that's 8 years ago. Over the past 8 years, there was an average inflation rate of 3.41%, which means that $360 would cost you $470.60 today. And so, in this case, right, you can buy Mario Kart in a bundle with the Switch, but let's say you just buy the basic Switch 2 and then Mario Kart digital afterwards, you're spending $530. So that's an increase in about $60. Now, what does that $60 potentially represent? Well, for one, we would hope that as a company grows, right, they're able to pay their employees more beyond just the rate of inflation to keep them past like the cost of living expenses, but that as they become more developed, as they develop their talents, as they continue to develop things for the company, that they're properly compensated for those increases. In addition, tech prices are more expensive. You have a more expensive console to build now. This last week, you know, in the United States, tariffs have increased prices on things. Those policies are going to be taken into effect. And the games that we're getting now take more time to develop than they used to. They're supposed to be more impressive. They're supposed to be better experiences, right? Gaming's supposed to get better and better the longer we go on. So for me, I think that raise in price is 100% justifiable. Now, before we say anything else, I want to blow your mind a little bit. Do you know when the $60 price tag became the norm for the gaming industry?
Let me think about that. Is that the Xbox 360 PS3 era?
Xbox 360 PS3 era, which launched back in 2005, which means for the past 20 years, you have kept this pretty much the same price for games. Now, some games have jumped to the $70 mark, but over 20 years, it kept the exact same price. So, while I can understand the frustration now, that a price rise is happening now, we've actually been getting a pretty dang good deal. And when you take into account inflation, the value of this console, the time value of money is cheaper for this console in a game than it was buying an Xbox 360 in a game back then.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think now he brings up a really great point, pricing it so close to a PS5 digital edition, right? Why do they do that? And I think the main answer is that we talked about value, right? Nintendo thinks that its console is worth as much as a PS5 digital edition. It thinks that its games, it thinks that it's what it brings to its customers, the products that they have coming out, the products that they continue to develop for it are worth it. And because of the record-breaking success of the Switch, and I think that's just going to continue. I think they've got a lot of momentum right now. And so it's kind of that same thing where if they can charge that much and people are going to buy it and it's still a net profit over other plans of potentially pricing it lower but capturing more customers, why wouldn't they? Like that's objectively the correct move for a business to make.
Yeah, and I don't think it's apples to apples when you compare a PS5 to the Switch 2, because even if the pricing is the same, consider that they're saying, at least according to their claims, that it can do 4K 60 in that form factor, and you can play it portably anywhere. Like, I think the price justifies that. And in fact, I'm surprised that there isn't a greater performance gap. The fact that it can do 4K 60 at all is impressive for that package.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's a big deal, and like inflation and everything you said is just very correct too.
One other thing that I thought about, I think is quantity as well. Like Sony, so we've talked before about how when Sony sells a PS5, they take like a huge loss, right? Because the tech that goes into building a console, they make no money off of a console
That's
sale.
what they say, is they sell them at a loss.
They make all their money off of game sales, right?
Yeah.
And so let's consider that potentially that's the same thing that's happening here for Nintendo. So why are their games priced more expensively? Well, Sony has how many studios working for them, right? And so Nintendo has less games coming out, but because their games are higher quality, I think it makes sense for them to charge a premium price, because I do consider first-party Nintendo games to be pretty much the cream of the crop. Like, there aren't many gaming experiences I've had that are better than a Mario, a Zelda, or a Smash Brothers. Like, those are top tier for me. And it won't be for everyone. And that's the whole part of economics and marketing in general, right? Is that certain people will not value things the same way. And so you have to try to find this sweet middle ground. But I think looking at it from both a consumer's perspective and trying to dive and understand as much of their business operations as I can from very, very limited information, I think it makes sense on both ends for me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. All right, well, let me continue on to his next spiel here. Console gaming has always been popular for exactly two reasons: affordability and convenience. The Switch is still convenient, but they have priced themselves in dangerous waters, especially considering that 256GB Steam Deck is $50 cheaper, has access to significantly more games that are all drastically cheaper, and can still play 16-bit games at 4K as well. The pricing model just does not make sense to me based on the current landscape.
So I don't agree with the comments about the pricing, but I do think the affordability is actually like a very good point that he brings up, where it seems like Nintendo's kind of trying to abandon that they're like the baby's first system. Like it seems like they're trying to position themselves as an equal competitor, just offering different products, but like the same level of quality is, I think, what they're trying to position themselves as, which I think is an interesting move. I'm considering how well it's worked for them in the past. But do you have any other thoughts on that?
In terms of their hardware and tech and stuff, I don't think they're like, they've always trailed behind the other competitors in terms of like graphical fidelity and stuff. And I don't think that's changed here in any way. Like doing 4K 60 now in 2025, you're still late to the game, right?
Yeah.
But when you consider that that's being done in an incredibly portable factor, that is quite innovative, I guess, if you want to call it that. But I don't think the Steam Deck is a good comparison point, because the Steam Deck doesn't have exclusive games. The Steam Deck doesn't have the same features that the Switch 2 does. It's not as seamless as the Switch 2. The Steam Deck is a Steam machine, right? So you're going to have a lot of good games on there that you can play, and you're going to have to tinker a lot to get them to work the way you want it to do, which is part of the beauty, right? I have a Steam Deck. I love my Steam Deck.
It's right there.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't expect to run Cyberpunk 2077 and not have to tweak around in the settings to get it to run the way I want it to. And even if I do, it's not going to be the optimal experience that the developer necessarily intended. So like, you can't, but all Nintendo games are going to be, like you said, they're going to be polished, they're going to be catered to the hardware. They can optimize it because they know their hardware. That's part of why I think Nintendo's able to do some impressive stuff with their limited hardware historically. I don't know. I just don't think the Switch, comparing the Switch 2 to the Steam Deck, is a fair comparison point, because they are not the same, right? At the end of the day, someone that's going to buy a Switch 2 may or may not have a Steam Deck, but the reason you buy a Steam Deck is never the reason you buy a Switch 2. And that's the point.
That's a great way to put it.
That's my point.
That's a great way to put it.
So it is not the same market, and just because they have similar physical attributes, they're both portable, they can both output 4K, that doesn't mean that they're both the same target audience. You've got stuff like the ROG Ally, that's in the same market as the Steam Deck, right? And those companies are competing in that sphere because they're both Steam machines. They're both, more toward the PC gaming crowd, but the Switch 2 is not that. It's just not. And to be clear, Zach, I love you, man, and I am so grateful that you sent this, because it gave us so much stuff to talk about, and we have a little bit more to cover, but I just hope that, I don't want you to feel like we're attacking you. This is just our opinion and our take in response to what you had to say.
Yeah, one thing I want to say is a lot of people do complain on social media right now about, or share similar concerns as you. You easily have like the most detailed and thought out responses of what I've seen. So it's not like you're just spouting off, right? Like you make excellent points. I just disagree with them. And in case you forgot, I usually disagree with SJ on everything, and me and him are great friends. So right, we're thank you for throwing that in there. I think that's good to reemphasize that real quick.
Okay, so he goes on. He says, "Yeah, I'm curious for your guys' take on it, because I'm curious. I'm actually baffled as someone who now works in marketing, how this is supposed to play out. The Switch 2 now does what a Steam Deck does, but worse, and for more money. And it's still only the Nintendo store you get to buy from, which is more expensive. The rumors that this will be Nintendo's Wii U 2.0 are overblown, in my opinion, but this was a very weird marketing decision, in my opinion. The only reasoning I can see as to why they felt confident enough to do this is they must believe they have cornered a sector of the gaming market to a point they feel bold enough to cost more than a 256 gigabyte Steam Deck and the same as a digital edition PS5 and make their games 15% more expensive and think they'll still have excellent sales for this new console. I'm actually more fascinated than upset. This is like really baffling.
So I think Zach just shared something that I think illustrates my opinion perfectly well when he talks about cornering a specific portion of the market. I think that's exactly what they've done. I think they are highly confident in the sales from the Switch 1. I think they're highly confident that as long as they continue doing what they're doing, they will retain a large amount of that market while also bringing in new gamers who might be starting, to game now that they're getting old enough or that kind of stuff as they get older. I think that's a perfect explanation for why they feel they can price it this way, is they're confident in their loyal consumer force. I think Nintendo fans are more loyal than any other gaming fans. Well, that's not fair. PC gaming fans are very, very loyal to the PC system and ecosystem. But no, I think he kind of nailed it on the head there, personally.
Yeah, and where he says though that, now you've got a Switch that does what the Steam Deck does, but worse. But it doesn't. The Steam Deck doesn't have any Nintendo games.
Right. I had a note in there. I was like, but you can't play Super Smash Bros. Ultimate on a Steam Deck.
Right. If you could, then this would be a whole another story, right? And that kind of ties into our point of, when Zach was saying that you should just release Nintendo games on Steam because it'll just be more money for Nintendo's bottom line like Sony has done. Well, if they did that, then yeah, a lot of people could buy a Steam Deck and get to play the Nintendo games on the Steam Deck, right? And then the line becomes blurred the more you do that. But yeah, let me get back to it here. Oh, I think that was it, actually. Yeah, that was pretty much it. And he's just saying, he concluded by saying, I'm actually more fascinated than upset. This is like really baffling to me. A truly bold move based on my perspective of the gaming landscape. Something that I honestly want to learn from if there's some hidden genius going on that I can't see right now. Really excited for you guys' thoughts on it and excited for the new games coming out. Can't believe Kirby Air Ride is making a comeback.
Kirby Air Ride.
Yeah, man.
No, I think it's great. And, again, with inflation, $60 in 2006 is $94.54 today. Also, one other thing. I wonder if this is actually going to help something. So, I don't play GTA, right? I don't think you've ever played a GTA game.
No.
But obviously GTA is a very big franchise within the industry, right? And people have been waiting for GTA 6 for forever. It's a full-on meme format that certain things happen in media or in pop culture before GTA 6 comes. But GTA 6 is launching next year. GTA 6 is going to cost $100. And so I'm intrigued to see if people are going to be upset about GTA 6 costing $100 versus this, especially now that Nintendo's kind of going to be taking the brunt of price rises at first. And you mentioned it, that I think this will set a new precedent for the industry. And yeah, I think Sony games from now on, Sony first party games, like Ghost of Yote, is that what the sequel to Ghost of Tsushima is called?
Yeah, I can't remember.
Like, they could easily price that at $80 or $90. And I think I'm okay with it. It is unfortunate that price rises are happening, but after 20 years, they had to happen at some point. And it is weird that it's Nintendo that's bringing it on, but
and one thing that Zach said too is like, it's crazy that they're doing this in this economic landscape. Like now of all times, they're choosing to raise their prices. And I imagine what he was saying is that, everything is getting expensive these days, right? And now Nintendo is raising their prices. Well, like, from their perspective, it's because things are expensive now that they have to or ought to raise their prices. If they're gonna do it at any point, it's now.
Right. If they rose their prices when everything else was staying level, like,
It's like, okay, why? Like, what's your justification?
Whereas doing it with this
um,
is, they're just matching the rest of everything, you know?
yeah. And I think I want to just bring up one point, and I know this is getting long, but in regard to, hey, why don't they release games on Steam or PC? Because, you know, that's just more money for them. Like, if they really need more money, just do that. Like, don't raise your prices. I think there, like you brought up, there are a lot of intangibles that we have to consider that a brand has. So, I think part of what makes Nintendo games so great is that they're always very well polished. You know, their vision of their game is almost always executed exactly how they want it to be. And when you release a game on PC, no matter what, it will get tainted regardless of whether you think that taint is positive or negative, right? There's going to be mods that come out. There's going to be memes. People are going to replace, you know, Link with Shrek. And
right. And isn't it also just very, very costly to optimize a game for PC? Like I know there are plenty of games that release very well on consoles, and then the PC edition just doesn't perform
garbage. Well. Yeah, Jedi Survivor on release, that was a great example of that. There's plenty of other games that, right. Yeah, I don't know exactly what goes into porting a video game. I don't know anything about that. But from what we've seen in the past, it doesn't look like it's as easy as copy and pasting and dropping it on the Steam shop. There's time and development and effort that goes into that, and if it's not good, the developers get heat for it as well. And I guess what I'm trying to say is Nintendo makes games cater to their hardware, specifically, a lot of them. So now, if they were to have to worry about releasing it on Steam, they would have to cater every single video game to the traditional video game controller. They'd have to make sure that the port is good. They'd have to make sure they have support for all these monitors. They'd have to make sure they have support for ultra-wide. I think it throws a wrench in a lot of things, and I think it would hurt their brand image, because a lot of their brand image comes from the fact that they're so consistent with their first party games, except for Pokemon, in terms of like quality and polishment, right? And I think it would be extremely difficult to control all of that. And you know how much Nintendo hates mods and things, right? Regardless of whether you think that's good or bad. I mean, I personally have played games with mods, like I love modding, but you can't deny that the image of Nintendo characters and video games as a whole would start to shift a little bit if you were to release those games on PC, where you open up that Pandora's box.
You know, I've watched Kratos beat up Ned Flanders from The Simpsons. And that's one of the more tame examples of a mod. Now, my last question before we kind of end the podcast. In an alternate universe where Nintendo does release things on PC, and you do mod in Shrek to be Link, and Fiona to be Zelda, and Donkey to be your companion character, which Zelda game do you think fits best with a Shrek mod?
Ooh. I'd want to do Ocarina of Time.
See, I was actually thinking Majora's Mask.
Yeah.
Because the first area in there is a swamp.
Oh,
and then as you come out, like
you're right.
Like I think it fits the Shrek mold a lot. So
yeah, I agree.
That's your question for the day, Discord members. If you could put Shrek into any Zelda, or you know what, just any Nintendo game that has like a traditional story, so not like Smash Brothers, because everyone wants to do Shrek and Smash Brothers, but Nintendo Shrek in a mainline Nintendo game, and the story's altered to fit kind of the Shrek vibe. What do you think fits best? I really want to hear your answers.
And also let us know which side of the camp are you on? Are you kind of somewhere in the middle? I imagine most people are going to agree with Zach's opinion here. I think
so
that's
too.
more of
so
the
too.
common opinion to have. And again, we're not trying to attack Zach. We both know Zach. I love Zach. He's great. And that's kind of the whole point of this podcast, is to discuss different opinions. And I think it brings for good discussion. And I totally can empathize with Zach's opinions, and I respect it.
Right. And his opinions were grounded. They were realistic. They were based on like easy to understand arguments too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So thank you for basically providing the debate. Since we agreed on something, we needed something to.
We needed someone to disagree with us.
So thank you. You basically created the second half of this episode for us. So shout out to you, my guy.
Also, shout out to our Patreon supporters. We've got our Down to Earth Cockatiels, Joshua, Matthew, and Tyler. And then we also have our Down to Earth Parakeets, Jay Maurer, Nicholas, and Noah. Thank you so much for all of your support. Our last episode on Patreon was pretty fun to record, and actually pretty long as well. If you guys are ever looking for a little bit of extra content to listen to, go ahead and check us out. Otherwise, we'll talk to you next time.
Bye.
See ya.